Good evening. I hope everyone is well today. I am trying to upload or download a picture or a couple of pictures that I want to show you in a minute. So I'm in the middle of that process. I know people have been on here. I saw Jeff and Cheryl and Donnie and other people. Guido, I think, was on there. So give me just 1 second and get this image saved that I'm trying to look at. And I'll see if I can't find another one that I want to use for my demonstration, let's say, because I talked about this car before, and I'd mentioned about using a fender off of it for the 68 coupe, of course, Jade, that will be getting put together sooner than later, I hope. And anyway, so there was a couple of pictures that I have that I just wanted to download to show you. So I've got one of them downloaded, and then I can pull that up in just a minute. Wow, we got 21 viewers. That's fantastic. I saw Jeff was taking bets on what color shirt was going to be on tonight. I don't know who had blue, medium blue, but whoever did, Jeff, you have to do a payout for that. So, and there's a lot of chatter on here from 6 o'clock. I think Jeff was the first one to show up. So there's Jeff. David and Cheryl had shown up, and I think it's just Cheryl tonight. Yep, just Cheryl. So who else do we have? They had a good conversation going prior to the start of the show tonight, let's say. And Greg has shown up from Greg's Workshop. So he's here. Oops, there he is. And there's a lot of conversation going on. So let's see. We have Ricky Williams. He's looking forward to the Camaro build. So am I. Jerry Towler is here. Glad you're here. Fall day in Middle Tennessee. It is a fall day here in Georgia too. As I said, Donnie is here. Thank you for being here, Donnie. And who else do we have? I'm sure there's more. Again, a variety of conversation going on. And let me see. Who else? As I said, Guido asking if it's live or Memorex. And that's an old 80s commercial, right? And let me see who else. Amso is here. Glad he's here. Rick Stevenson is here. And Crash Rider is here from Southern Indiana. Motorsports Engine, they're in the house. And let me see who else. I don't want to miss anybody. There's a lot of comments going on. Peter B is here. DP is here. Sammy and Lisa Smith is here. And so, okay, there's Chris C is here. Kuderlev, Oklahoma City. My wife told me my t-shirt arrived, but she can't remember where she put it. Grounds for divorce. It means you have to order another one. Nandu. Hi, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. I hope you are as well. Bob Shoemaker is here. Got in just in time from the porch railing project. Well, that sounds like a good thing to get finished, unless you're still working on it. So, and all right. So, anyway, it is getting to be fall. It is a time of year when the temperatures change. Obviously, the seasons change. The weather gets cooler, and for some people, they love it. And I do love the fall. I love spring, but I love fall, and really enjoy being outside at this time of year and just taking it all in. Let's see. Let's see who else we have. Doyle Walker. Enjoy your channel. Learning a lot. Working on a 69 Cutlass. Just started the body work. Good. That's good to hear. That's always good to hear. So tonight, this discussions are probably going to be pretty random. I don't have a lot specifically that I wanted to talk about, but I do want to mention that I've been trying to get stuff done on the doors for the Jade Mustang. So you probably saw, or some of you may have seen a video for the paint removal, and that went pretty well. And from there, I did a little bit of welding on the mount holes for the latch assembly. Let me see here. BK Woods is showing up. Great. And anyway, so I had to fix those on the driver's door. Passenger door didn't have any problems. Obviously, the driver's door is typically going to get more wear and tear, and you know, just the way it is. So that's what normally goes bad. Jeff's commenting 5 minutes and we're up to 30 plus. Yes, that's good. Yeah, Samuel Lisa Smith, we can weld without getting overheated. Yes, yes. And you know, today, of course, I didn't have the air on or anything in the shop. I had my front door open and the back door open, and I had my somebody had asked me or commented on the video. Let me see here. Wait, hold on a second. We have Roger Van Glider. Oh, that's a nice name. Glad you're here as well. Bob Shoemaker. Do other years latch holes break out like 68? Yes, they do. And I showed that in the video, because it is a tapered hole, they just take a die and stamp it in there, and it stretches the metal. So it gets really thin around the flat surface, and it's not uncommon. I mean, it happens quite a bit. I've seen cars that were redone, shown in a car show, and they had the door open. I walked by and I could see the crack in the door. So yeah, it does happen. Okay, so Jeff's talking to Sammy Lisa. Okay, but anyway, fixed up that door and finished cleaning up the doors as need be. But just not even half an hour ago, maybe half an hour ago, I sprayed epoxy on those doors because they need to be, ready to go. I don't think there's any more work that needs to be done. And I'm making a video on it, and I sprayed PPG gray epoxy primer. JP202, I think, is the number. And the reason I did that, because the rest of the car I've been using black. But because of the gray, because the interior of the door, the finished area of the door is going to be black, I sprayed it with gray so that when I do spray the black, I can see it going on, and it gives me a better visual of coverage. And not that it's that critical, but if I sprayed it with black and then I try to top coat it with a black, it makes it harder to see where you've covered, and you might end up actually adding more material than you need. So that's where I'm at with that. So I've just posted pictures on Instagram and also on the Facebook page. So those are up as well. And also I did I haven't tried it before. I did an Instagram TV. I think they have a thing called IGTV. And I did a startup of the 68 Mustang, which I haven't started in, I don't know how long, probably 6 months. So I did a startup, had it idle and get warm, and revved it up, made it feel pretty good to feel the engine running and hear it running. And actually that's what's going to happen on the video for the doors. I decided to do a startup video like Grease Rookie Garage does. He's done it on several of his videos where he just has a startup just to show that it runs. And so I did that with Jade. And like I said, it felt pretty good to fire that engine up and rev it up a few times. Okay, we have a question from Chris. Chris is asking, are Dynacorn outer rockers for a 70 Mustang any good? Good question. I don't have an answer because I have not dealt with the rocker panels for the 69 and 70. Now, I can tell you there's been issues with the 65 and 6, and I'm not sure about the 67 and 8 because, again, I haven't put those in. But on the 65 and 6, they're something's too wide. It makes the rocker stand away from, let's say, where the door would meet it. And people have had to cut those and roll it back in to make it match. Why they're shaped like that, I don't know. The ones that I used on the Brooklyn Pony, I did not modify. Everything I did when I put those together and I built the thing, there's a mosquito coming to get me. When I built the car, everything lined up. Now, I say everything lined up. There was some conflict with the way the A pillar and the B pillar actually sat on the pinch weld, but everything else lined up. So anyway, a little bit of conflict, but I can't say for sure on the 69 and 70. Look at that mosquito. You're not supposed to be out. Man. All right. Boondocker checking in. Jack W checking in. Let's see. Oh, this is going to be one of those nights where I'm going to be swatting at flies, swatting at bugs. Why is this? I don't understand why I have a mosquito in the garage right now. Okay. Jeff, I'm afraid I'm more interested in knowing how well Barry's Gray's head and bruised brain is holding up. It's doing pretty good. Barry will use black primer on the outer surface of the doors to keep the primer consistent prior to the finish coat. Yes. And those have already been sprayed with black primer and then followed up with the high build. So the outer doors are in the gray at this point. Everything's been sprayed. And I did post pictures on the Facebook page of those doors sprayed in black. And I don't know if I showed them on the outside sprayed in gray or not. But yeah, that's the idea, is to make everything consistent on the outside. So the only conflict is that inner, and of course it really gets to be an issue with the inner area of the doors with the grained stamping. I'm pretty positive, or pretty confident, that when they built these cars, they didn't put primer on the inside of that area of the doors. And the reason I say that is because of that grain finish on the door. So, when you look at the door, I almost think that if they had sprayed primer, it would have taken some of that grain away and then put on a top coat. It would have done some more, because parts of that door I think have never been stripped. And when I was stripping it, I didn't see primer. Now, it could have been painted before and somebody did it that way. I don't know. But that's my assumption at this point, is they did not put primer, because along with that, the bottom of the door where the seal goes, there is on the passenger door, I think the passenger door actually had more rust on that surface than anywhere else. And it was behind where the seal goes. So I'm thinking, it had been exposed to more weather because it was outside the seal, and may have caused some problems with the finish. But that's my speculation. I'm just thinking they didn't put primer on the inside. So at this point, I put on a thin coat of epoxy. Everything's covered, but I didn't just lay there and build it up like crazy, because it's going to get top coated, and I don't want to have too much on there. So anyway, that's where that's at. Jeff, Tony Barry, is there anything different with black primer other than the color? I.e., is it any harder? No. Nope. Epoxy is epoxy. It's just a color. And again, it comes down to, depending on what you're painting, you can influence the color slightly with the epoxy. So, and some people, again, if you're painting a car black, I would recommend painting it in gray. If you're going to go from epoxy to black, as a finish or top coat, whatever, then spray it with gray, so you can spray the black color and you can see it, when it gets on there. Because otherwise, like I said, you're kind of guessing. You might miss a spot and you don't see it because it's the same color as the epoxy if you use black. So it's just to help people paint, probably more than anything, so that you can see the end results as you're going through the process. But that's about it. Same way with the other primers. I know when we had the body shop, with the thousands and thousands of colors that are available on modern cars, And I say literally thousands because one manufacturer will have their 500 colors, and then another one will have their 500 colors, and they might be off just a tick, but it's a different color. They would even have when you looked at the chip card for that car, let's say the paint code was 2 Charlie or something, 2C, whatever it is, and you pull up that card, you're going to have 2C, and then you're going to have 2C, A, B, C, D, whatever. You might have 5 variations of 2C. And then what you'd have to try to match that card, visually, look at each card individually onto that color pattern that's on, let's say, on a fender, nice clean fender or something. And you try to match. The reason for that is there could be a variation in the primer that they used on that particular run. There could be a variation on the mix itself to where they use a slightly different flake, something along those lines. So that's why you have a book a stack of color charts for a body shop. And they'll have a term like they'll say prime. So let's say you had whatever, Honda Accord that was painted the 2B, and they say the prime, well, that's the primary color. That's like the original color they wanted to have, but they ended up with variations of that same color. So by default, a lot of times you can go to, you will just say paint it to prime, because the bulk of the cars in the country will be that prime color. And it's kind of like it's just kind of like a ballpark type of thing where you just say, paint it prime and then blend the color to match. So anyway, probably more information than you want to know, but just one of those things. Jeff Reynolds, a long time since I spray painted. It was mainly cellulose and a little posh acrylic. Okay. Bob, does the PPG Shopline epoxy cost less than the DPLF epoxies? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the DPLF, so I can't say. Doyle, so you recommend white primer for light colors? Well, again, it's kind of tough. I mean, typically, I would say yes to that. Yes, a light primer for light colors. That makes perfect sense, because a darker primer will actually make it appear darker than it maybe you want it to be. So you have to consider that. Now, assuming you're painting a complete car, that's probably your best choice. Go with a light primer, because even when we did it, PPG had, the color chart gave us 3 different primers. You'd have a light, medium, and dark. And so whenever you chose whichever card you felt like matched what was on that car, you flip the card over or whatever, and it would tell you prime number 1, and then it would tell you the shade of primer that's under that color. So that's how sophisticated it can get when you do that. But as a default, yes, if you're going with a light color, paint it with a light primer. Then you're probably better off, for sure. Let's see. Bob, a lot of shops were blending when we had a variation in the colors. Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing. Even if you painted, you would never get a perfect, let's say you replaced the fender and the car was this X number blue. Even if you had the card and you picked out that blue and then you painted the fender by itself and put it on the car, it would not look the same. The reasons for that, there's a variety of reasons. One, old paint, kind of fades off a little bit as over time. Number 2, the clear coats that were used. So as an example, if you painted a Honda has, or had, I don't know if they still do, like the minimal amount of clear coat on the car. And now if you're painting a fender and you come back and you put on a nice quality clear coat, you're not going to put one coat on and walk away. You're going to end up putting one or two coats on at least. And then when you try to put that on the car, you'll look at it and the sun hits it. It's two different colors. So that's why they would do the blending. They would put the we would put the fender on and then do a blend process to where the color fades into the door, and then your eye doesn't see it. It just has a natural look to it, and you don't see it. A lot of times I could still pick it out because I could see that, just me. But the average person, they'll never know the difference, can't see it, and it's just normal more normal to not see it than it is to see it, in my opinion. Let's see. John McGuire. Hi, Barry and all from San Jose, California. First time to watch you live. Well, thank you, John. Glad you're here. I'd give you a cookie, but you're in California. Sorry. And Jeff is in the UK. So and it's not Joe, Jeff. It's not Joe, J-O-E. It's Joe, J-O. Come on, Jeff. You got to do better than that. Joe is my daughter's name. That's why it's Joe, J-O, Joe. Okay. Anyway, so that's the idea with the paint process. There's all kinds of, variables that come into play when you're trying to do collision type stuff. Even like the bumpers and all that stuff where you may have to use adhesion promoter to help it stay on or make it, bond to the bumper cover. A bunch of stuff that has to happen. There's even flex agent you can put in that'll help the paint move if you do have it on a bumper cover that has a lot of flexibility to it. There's just a lot of variables that come into play, and that's why people have asked me. Friends of mine, they'll have a car that has some minor damage, and they'll say, "Can you fix this?" And I say, "I can fix it, but I can't. I don't want to paint it." And I said, "Why not?" I said, "Because I can't match it. I can't make it match. I don't have the whole rack of PPG base colors to mix the paint the way it needs to be mixed." But I said there's possibility you could panel paint. You could do just get the prime color, which I have done that before. I've done a bumper cover for somebody, and I said, "Look, I can paint it to what should be the prime base color, and there it is." And they were happy with it. But typically I try to avoid it because I know I can't blend. I can blend if I had the right materials, but I don't have that inventory. So Bob, I see cars all the time where they panel painted and the match was awful. Yeah, it happens a lot. It happens a lot. And but on a budget, somebody will say, well, they want to take the money and run. Just go ahead and paint the fender, and I don't care. Just put it on, So I can't fault them in some cases for that, especially if it's just a random car. If it's just like my little Ford Focus that I wrecked I don't know how long ago, over a couple of years ago. I ended up crunching the right front fender and the hood and a little bit of the core support. Well, I went to a junkyard and I was hoping to find a car the same color because I wouldn't even done anything. I would have just bolted it on, but I couldn't find one. So I bought a fender and a hood off of a green Focus, and my car is copper or, gold color, whatever. So I just, I don't even know that I put primer on, honestly, because it's a Focus. I don't care. I just wanted it to look close. And that's what I did. I fixed the understructure of the car, put new headlights in it. I just painted, I don't even think I painted the underside of the hood. I think I just painted the top of the hood and the outside of the fender all by themselves. And again, I think I just did a clean Scotch-Brite, clean, and spray. I don't even think I put primer on the thing. The clear coat was good. I just let it go. And it's fine because it's just a beater car. It's nothing to, you're going to make money off of down the road. It's just a car. But other cars you probably should spend money on, Donnie, so that's where the Joe comes from. Yeah. Her name is is Joelle, 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 and we always call her Joe, Jojo, whatever. But yeah, that's how Joe Daddies came about. I'm her, her name's Joe, and I'm her daddy, Joe Daddy, Joe's daddy. Kind of play on words there a little bit. Joe, it is. All right. Well, you say Joe. I'm going to say Jeffrey. Okay, I get you now. I see predictive text. Okay, well, I'll take Jeffrey back. Brian Francis, glad you're here. And this is good. We got 44 tonight. What else was there? Was something else I was going to mention. I will mention that even though it's not, well, we can keep talking about cars and bumpers and stuff like that because Bob has commented here. Some of the bumpers are manufactured somewhere else, and the factories would okay up to a 12% color mismatch. How do you calculate that? I don't even know how you calculate a 12% color mismatch. That sounds pretty challenging. Pedro Barbosa, hi from Lisbon. I saw your last video on the rust treatment. What is your go-to advice when the rust is between the panels, like in the middle of spot welds? That's a tough question. Depending on the panel, I guess, and what you can get into it. Now, there are rust converters. And like the stuff I was using it's called a rust dissolver. And when I've used it on other panels before, I think I've shown it on the fender video that I did on the Jade Mustang when I did that big patch. The patch panel had surface rust on it. And so I had brushed it with the rust dissolver, and it cleaned it. It took all that off, which is fantastic. Now, that didn't do what I wanted on the doors. It treated it. It did, but it didn't do it completely. Now, there's other products out there there's a rust converter that I can't tell you what's in it. I don't know, acids of some sort that you can brush on and get it into or onto the rusted areas, and it'll seal it up. It'll like convert it to a black material, coating, and seal it up. So what I would say on something like that, if you can access it to the point, like you're saying in the middle of spot welds. I don't know if you mean like between two panels that are spot welded together, or you're talking about the spot weld itself, which is a whole different situation. But if you had the two panels that were together, I would try to get that rust converter down in there as tight as I could. Take a thin brushes and just kind of push it down in and try to get it to go down in as far as you can. Now, as far as the rust, and if you're talking about in a spot weld, that's a little bit different situation. I think I would you can still treat that if you're talking like a factory spot weld, because my mind is defaulting to a weld that I may have done. But if you're talking about in the factory spot weld, wire brush that thing, get all that junk out of there, and put in the rust converter, and let it top coat it off, and that's supposed to take care of it. Supposed to, but that's about all I can say on that. Jeff Reynolds, there's a lot more work in blending to the adjoining panel. There is. But again, if you're, like my cheap little Focus, I don't care. I don't care if you notice it or not. But if you're driving a Mercedes, I think you're going to want to blend that panel, or BMW of some sort, or something more high end. If you have a sports car, Corvette, you're going to want to blend that panel, or else paint the whole car. Probably is a better choice. Donnie, my daughter's name is Alexandra. We call her Alex or Warmy. Okay. That makes sense. Makes sense. No go-kart ride tonight. Nope. I haven't messed with it. I have not messed with it. And in fact, there's still a little bit of a soft spot, or else I say sore spot, and a bit of a dent maybe in my head, maybe. So I had somebody think that it may have been the button on the hat, but for that to happen, my hat would have had to come forward and then go back. So it wasn't the hat. It was a little connector on that light assembly. So I've even avoided. Usually I buzz my hair off because I hate it. I'd rather be bald. But I haven't used the clippers because it's a little tender up here still. I don't know. I can't see it. Anyway, a little tender. Yeah, it's all good though. It's all good. But I do have some good news that I should mention. My oldest son, who doesn't normally, I don't think he watches any of this, but he'd been laid off during the COVID thing, and he got a job offer. So that's good news for him. He starts a new job on Wednesday, and it'll be a new experience for him. Definitely, it's not something he's a mechanical engineer by trade, and he has some good background to what he's done. But this one is different. This will be a different job for him, and I'm hoping that he can figure it out and get involved and make it work. So anyway, so that's good news. Jerry Tyler, clear base coat is used in blending. Well, I've not used clear base coat that way. Well, I mean, not clear. I mean, base coat. But you're talking about a clear base mix, I assume, where you put the two together. I have seen that done before. So you're talking about mixing the two and having a clear in the base. I understand that. Yeah, Clark, maybe it's a Tuma. Maybe it's a Tuma. I hope not. I hope not. Yeah, Jeff, it is good news. He's been out of work for probably, I don't know, 3 weeks or so now, 4 weeks. Had several interviews, and some of them were an hour drive away, some were half an hour drive, but he'll be fine. I know that Bob, he has some of my genes. He has some of my genes. I will say that. I tried years and years to get both of my sons out here to turn wrenches and learn things, and they both change their own oil. That's fine. They don't do much else. They don't really. I mean, my younger son, he's got a better understanding of some of that stuff, but my oldest son, he's definitely an engineer. He's definitely an engineer. I'll say that up front. He doesn't have that natural ability where you grab a wrench and know how to use it. He just doesn't, because his mind is too complicated, but the difficulty with what he's going to be doing is the job is asking him to I think if I understood correctly, look at the machines that they're using for production, and I think they want them to write SOPs, which is standing operating procedures, for these machines, and also like troubleshooting stuff, which is not really in his wheelhouse. I'm like, he's telling me what the job is, and I was like, oh, that's my job. That's my job. That's what I do. Tell me what. So I told him, I said, if you do run into a problem or something, call me. Because even when working on the aircraft industry, there were many times I've had conversations with engineers for the aircraft industry and had to like talk them through stuff, because engineers' minds work completely different. They are different, and they may not. I mean, they can probably look at a book and understand how things operate with a book, but it's different when you put stuff in front of them and they're like, I don't understand it. But anyway, I've been talking to them and giving them tips and pointers as to how to reverse engineer things, try to figure out how something or what could cause something. Like if there's a bearing failing, look at how it's designed and determine, is it a load that's coming a certain direction, or is it a misalignment, type of thing, stuff like that. Try to give you an idea of, what could go wrong. So I may have to go over to his job and observe, help him out. So Jerry, you're saying no, clear base coat. Okay. Oh, you're okay. I know what you're saying now. Sorry. I have seen people use not necessarily clear base coat, but I haven't seen them spray clear coat over primer prior to adding base coat because they could sand it smoother than they could with a primer. They could seal up that primer and then sand that thing slick and then spray it with base and then go from there. But that sounds kind of similar to what I may be talking about, or what you're talking about. But anyway, so you're saying it's different from base coat or from clear coat. Okay. Sammy, Lisa, thank you. I hope he does well as well. Pedro, yes, it's rust in between panels and not very accessible. Not necessarily spot weld rust. It's an 03 Acura. Thanks for your answer, you rock. All right. Well, thank you, Pedro. Hopefully something along those lines works where you get that material down inside and stop that rust. Jeff Barry, as my son once said, at the open day at our local butcher demonstrating sausage making. What? He said, our son said, to all present, I am half mommy's meat and half daddy's meat. Okay. Sammy Lisa Smith, I have a boss and I do what I'm told. Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully, again, he can learn a position. Because he told them up front. He said, I've never done that before. I'm not familiar with it, but I'm willing to learn and willing to step in and get my hands dirty and try to figure it out. So they hired him. So I'm happy. Now it becomes we've been my wife and I have been mostly my wife, I'll say that, watching our grandson whenever he's going for job interviews or stuff like that. So now, starting on Wednesday, she'll be babysitting during the week. So she'll be keeping our grandson. But that's fine. It's all good. It's all good. And I'm just hoping everything works out. And I will say, too, my other son is now applying to work for a fire department up in the north side of Atlanta. So we'll see how that goes. Kind of surprised me when he suggested that, but he's tried a lot of different things, and maybe being a firefighter is next on his list. I don't know, but I hope that works out as well. Otherwise, how are things everywhere else in the country? I know we've had hurricanes come through, and we've got fires out in California, and we won't talk about demonstrations and stuff. We'll ignore that right now. Jeff. Oh. Okay. All right. So he's responding to Donnie. Let me see if I can get that picture that I wanted to load. Yeah, I can get that one. Now, I know I talked, I don't know if it was Thursday or Monday, I don't remember. Maybe it was on Thursday's conversation, that some people had asked me to do a video on how to get to my Amazon page and stuff like that. Because apparently if you're on your mobile phone, you can't get to the Amazon page unless there's a way you have to do it. You have to, I forget what it was. You have to slide over and look at something like information or other or something on the phone. So people had wanted me to make a video to show how to get to Amazon, or how, through my links and stuff like that. So I have not done that yet, and I apologize for that. Just kind of, doing other things at the moment. Let's see, Jerry Tyler, here's an opportunity for you you can educate your grandson. Yes, definitely. And he's already, what's really kind of cool, and I may have mentioned this before, he started playing with little, Matchbox and Hot Wheels. He's 14 months old. So everything car. So he identifies pretty quick with the cars. The cool thing is we still have the Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars that our sons played with when they were his age. So he is now playing with his dad's Matchbox cars. So we don't have to go buy any. We just open up the old bins and let them have at it. So that's working pretty good. It's working pretty good. Brian, hi Barry, been here from the start. Had to clean up sprayer. Okay, well I'm glad you're here. We're done with sausage making. Okay. Good Munder. LOL. The father, engineer, son, mechanic, disconnect is familiar to me. Yeah, I'm telling you. Now, what's weird about it is, my dad, he was actually a heavy construction carpenter. So concrete forms, pouring concrete, big business type stuff. He did that for a living, and he had the junkyard as a side thing, just to have cars. He loved cars. Well, both my brother and I just got, and it wasn't because of him, I would say. It was because there were cars around, and there wasn't much else. We lived out in the country. It was like the nearest house was a mile away, and so, we were kind of, by default, employees of Dad. And so if you needed work done or whatever, we would go take that fender off, go do this, pull that engine, put that together, do that, kind of thing. And in doing that, that's where I gained a love for cars. And I was really hoping, my dad was a mechanic too. So, but that wasn't his primary thing. But I was really hoping when my boys were younger that I have such an opportunity here, because I've said it before. My dad didn't really teach us anything, because every time we asked, I know for me personally, if I said, how do you do that? How do you fix that? How do you do this? How do you do this? It wasn't, let me show you. It was, go figure it out. Like, you go figure it out. I don't want to mess with this. You go figure it out. So that's what I did. And so whenever my boys were coming up, I didn't want them to say, how do you do that? I wanted to just say, let me show you how it's done. And I would try to do that. I would try to show them everything I could. And it didn't go as, kind of as I had envisioned. It was, they would play with stuff like maybe a bike or something, but they really wouldn't get into the car stuff. And I would even tell them, I said, you pick out a car and we'll build it. I'll help you build it. I don't care. But wouldn't happen. So it didn't happen. Not done, Jeff? Okay. David Sure, my grandpa taught me to work on a vehicle so I didn't have to depend on anyone. Well, that's a good call right there. Barry, the links we discussed has worked. Very good, Jerry. Glad to hear that. That's the Amazon link we were talking about. Guido, according to Gavin Newsom, it's climate change. But funny, it ends at the Canadian. Oh, yeah. Border. Yeah, right. You're right about that. It's climate change. That's why you have fires going up everywhere. Jerry Tyler, I still have my son's Matchbox cars. That's cool. I have a bunch of my old Matchbox cars when I was a kid. A bunch of old Hot Wheels. They're all beat up. Not worth anything, but I still have them. Warwagon, hey old man, how are you? I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good as well. I really do. Okay, there it is. Rick Stevenson. To go to Amazon link, it is under the about link on iPhone, iPad. So if you're looking to do that, find the about link, and then you can find the connections to the Amazon page. BK Woods, same here. Son is finishing up his engineering degree at WPI, but can't turn a wrench for the life of him. Yeah. Well, it's crazy, And here's the other thing. My youngest son, as I think a junior and senior in high school, they had some sort of automotive course. Okay. Well, he took the automotive course. And I found out, and I said, what are they teaching you? Oh, just nothing. Just, and I think he was just kind of doing it. And I said, do your friends know that your dad has this garage behind his house? No. I said, well, you better not tell them. Why? Because all of your friends are going to want to come to your house just to be out in the garage. If they're into cars, they're going to want to be out here. And, later on, some of his friends did come by. They were with him, and they were just like, show me what's in the garage, and giving them tours, all the stuff in here. And they were like, what's that? Why aren't you out here? Telling my son. But anyway, like I said, he has a little bit of stuff going on. But my oldest son, man, I don't know. I tried to help him change. I wanted him to change out the air filter in his car, and I handed him a socket set, 1/4-inch drive, and I said, you need to take out these bolts here and here. I may as well have been, I don't know. It just none of it connected. None of it connected. So anyway, I'm hoping that he gets on the right page with that project and that process. So been dry in Missouri. Okay, good. Well, that's good. 471 people in your town. Wow. Does that count as a town? That's pretty small. That's pretty small. You must have like satellite internet or something out there. Usually if a town is that small, they don't have serious internet. I know that much. There's a time we go to the lake over in Alabama. We're lucky to get any kind of service over there. And they have, I'm thinking their population is 1,200 people, something like that. It's not huge. Okay. From Missouri. All right. BK, my daughter will figure it out before my son does. Yeah. Yeah, son. Yep. Kuderlev, engineers with master's degrees design it, mechanics with GEDs correct it. Yeah. Yes, very much so. And that's why, like I said before, when I worked with the engineers at the airline, they would write up some repair and come up with some crazy exotic metal and some crazy exotic fasteners and stuff like that. And they would they'd show me the repair, and I was like, where did you find this? Where are you going to get this magic metal? Whatever it was. I said, oh, well, that's what we're going to use. Okay, where do you get it? And they were like, what do you mean? Well, does it exist? Oh, I don't know. Well, where did you find this? Well, it was on this chart. I said, well, that's great, but you have to know if there is an inventory item or if you can get this exotic metal. I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. So, well, yeah. So there's one thing to make a design, but you have to understand the material you need to make that design work. So many times I had to backtrack and go, wow, they haven't produced that metal since 1978. It's like, oh, really? So anyway, Derek Pro, hi everyone. Hope you're all well. A bit late, just done live stream for my dad, who's 80 today, being in lockdown, still here. Only way to see everyone. Oh, that's sad that you have to do it as a live stream, but I'm glad you're able to make that connection. So thank you for being here, Derek. Pedro, some people are not destined to take bolts. They're destined to design them. Yes, I agree with that 100%. I agree with that. There's a different mindset to different groups of people. And not everybody is meant to go to college. Not everybody is meant to have a degree in philosophy or whatever. I mean, I have an associate degree, which is your basic degree, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just a piece of paper. It's a matter of what can you do with what's in your mind and your hands to make something happen. That's the biggest thing. You can have all the book smart you want, but if you can't figure things out, you're not going to get anywhere. Let's see. Donnie Roebuck, 6,300 in Macon. Wow. Yeah. Boondocker. Generally speaking, working with your hands is somewhat frowned upon. I've been blessed and wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, I wouldn't either. I'm telling you. Even though I did, work for the airline, a lot of it was paperwork. I hate paperwork. I just hate it. Like, I know, like my wife, for example, she's really good at paperwork, but she reads like all the time, or she could read every day, just read a book, and I can't. I just can't sit there. I just can't make myself sit still and try to read a book. I'll fall asleep, or I'll get bored, and I'm like, I got to go outside. I can't sit here and do this. But I think the last book I read was about, it had to be about 20 years ago. Was the last actual book I read. Now I'll read all kinds of data sheets or information sheets or manual references, snippets on the internet. I'll read that all day long because it's knowledge. It's stuff that I gain information from. But just reading a book just to, I guess, relax, can't do it. I mean, I could, but I can't. It's just not my thing. Rick Kudulev, that's what we told the pilots when I was in the Navy. College education to break it, high school education to fix it. Yeah. Yep. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so Pedro made that comment twice. All right. Let's see. Jeff, Donnie, while Barry's talking father sons, you're absolutely right. His mom and me were terrified of what he was going to say. Oh, okay, so you're talking about the sausage. David Cheryl, I still have my dad's Matchbox cars in mine. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Jeff, okay, we can skip ahead on that. Samuel H. Smith, you get a bell for what you said. I don't know what I said, but I'll give myself a bell. Let's see, Brian W. Finally, I say, 2 coats of epoxy primer on 4 fenders, 2 doors, and underside of front and rear hoods. That gets you. I'll give you 2 bells for 2 coats of epoxy. Awesome. That's good to know. Get her done, right? Yeah. Now the thing for me, I have to decide, like the doors that I've just put epoxy on. I have to decide what I want to do for the top coat of the grain finish area. I don't know if I'm just going to go with a base, a single stage, and just spray it and maybe have kind of a satin finish. I don't want it glossy. I kind of want a satin finish. But I have to come up with something that I can top coat that epoxy with, because I'm not going to add any 2K build primer to that area. I'm just going to go right on top of the epoxy and try to get that taken care of. Let's see, DP, one of the best compliments I, engineer, ever received from a senior A&P who said I was good with my hands as we turn wrenches. Well, see, there you go. Now that is a good compliment. That is a good compliment. Because if an A&P can give you that compliment, you should feel like you just got all pumped up for that. That's good. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, because I like to tell you, I know plenty of them. Now here's a crazy thing too. We had one engineer, and he had like a 95 F-150 truck with I don't know how many thousands of miles on it, and he had the rear end differential failed. Now, if that happens to me, I'm either going to buy another chunk and put into it, or buy a used complete assembly and put into it, and not really get too involved with the process. It's not like it's that expensive of an item, let's say, to fix. This guy, I've never seen anybody do this. This guy went and he found somewhere online all the local junkyards, all the there's a database you can go to and select. I forget what it is, pull apart, or I don't know. But anyway, he went to he wrote out a list. He had like 2 pages of differentials from what model truck they came from, how many miles were on each one of those trucks, how much each was going to cost because of whatever reason the junkyard charged X for this or X for that. And he went through this whole like flow chart of finding which differential was the best bang for his buck. And I'm telling you, there was a price difference of like between them all like $50. But he went through this whole process because that's how his mind works. He gets all that done, and he calls me up and he says, "Hey, could you help me put this together?" Sure. So he brought the truck over here, had it towed, and had the differential dropped off. And he said, "Okay, I think he said he was going to do something, like go get something to eat with had his car or something." I said, "Okay, you go ahead." Well, by the time he got back, I already had the differential out of the old truck, had the new one up in place, had the shocks connected, and I was connecting brake lines. And he came back and he says, "Okay, let's get started." And I said, "Oh, you're too late." And the only other thing we did was I pulled all the brake shoes and whatnot off of his old differential because it had more meat on the shoes, and swapped that stuff over. And he was done. And he was like, "Well, I was going to help you." And I said, "You helped enough." You helped enough. Anyway, let's see. Harvey is here. Rally Cat Garage. I use base color, satin. Okay, base color and satin clear on my jams. Pleased with the results. Yeah, I want to go with a satin. So when you say that, did you actually spray base and then spray satin clear, or was it a mix? Did you have them mixed together? Because you can do that. Oh, mosquitoes back. Okay. Derek Pro, experience is worth more than any piece of paper. We did hands-on and learned by mistakes in the old days. We are still learning now, thanks to people like you. As we get older, more patience. Yeah, definitely have more patience. And I get that all the time, that everybody's like, "I can't believe how much patience you have." And I'm like, well, what's the point of getting fired up and angry and frustrated? It doesn't help anything. DP, he also gave me all the crappy work cards. Yeah, go take apart the toilet, right? Kudos, my dad was a mechanic with an 8th grade education, smartest man I ever met. I've always said if I ever write a book, I will title it "Everything I Know About Business I Learned from a Mechanic." Well, there you go. I like that. That's one thing too. I did learn, we'll say through osmosis, from my dad. A lot of it was dealing with people, because he would buy and sell cars and parts, and I've mentioned it before about some of the stuff he's done, but I learned that it really didn't matter who you were. Like, we had some guys that showed up that were extremely wealthy, and we had some guys that were, had dirt for shoes, but my dad didn't care. He treated everybody the same, which was really cool, and I learned that from him. So later on in life, whenever I'm dealing with somebody, generally I'm like, I don't care what your background is. I don't care how much you're worth. I care about who are you as a person more than anything else. And from there, I'll do my further assessment or whatever. But if somebody comes at me with, "Well, do you know who I am? Do you know how much I have?" Yeah, I don't care. I just don't care. Doesn't matter to me. But that's the reality of learning stuff like that from your dad or other family members and stuff. let's see, Brian, I'm doing the single stage on this old VW project. You can clear coat over single stage if you desire. We will see. Well, you can. Normally what I do when I paint a car like the Mustang, I will paint the let's say the black area of the door, because the Jade Mustang is going to be Gulfstream Aqua. So there's a certain part of the door on the inside that is that body color. And I will paint the black area and get it where I want it and then mask it off. Whenever it comes time to put the car together for paint, I'll spray the jamb of the door, spray the door jamb itself, the door frame, spray the kick panel and the A-pillar, stuff like that, and put it together. And then when it gets painted, I'll clear coat everything except for that inner piece where I have the black trim. But I'll clear coat over everything, and that way it's a uniform color, it's a uniform clear, there's no tape lines, and it just looks good. Boondocker, as a general contractor, I once had a code enforcer ask where I went to school because I had the best understanding of structural engineering he had seen. No school except School of Hard Knocks. Yep, I'm with you on that. Harvey, yes, standard base and a satin clear. Okay. I haven't decided yet. I may talk, like I said, to my PPG guy and see what he says to use or recommends. But I have no issue with doing that, getting a base on and satin clear. Again, I'll mask it off, and it'll sit until whenever paint day may be. Who knows? Who knows? Let's see. Yeah, if anybody, I forgot to mention, if anybody wants to get on tonight, again, there's the link on the bottom of the screen. Whoops. Oh, let's see. Brian Francis, my dad's same. He grew up in '60s. Can't read, but built any motor. Yeah. Yep. Jeff, we're up to 54 and 60 minutes. Barry, are we going for 90 for the full 120 minutes? Well, we're going to keep going, I guess. I'm not watching football. So I can keep on going. Am so. Barry, any thoughts on the Eastwood roll-on primer? I don't really have much to say about it because I haven't tried it. Put it that way. I wouldn't mind trying it. It looks like it does a good job. I can't see why it wouldn't. Eastwood puts out pretty good products. In fact, wait a minute. Before it kicks, I got to remember. Let me make sure. I'll just go ahead and turn off the air compressor right now because I know it'll want to come on. But what I wanted to mention was, I received this the other day. I haven't opened it yet, but let's see. So Jeff says he can't go on tonight. I haven't started my archive homework. Okay. But yeah, as far as the Eastwood primer, I'm hearing good things, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. But I'd be willing to give it a try. Now, what I wanted to mention here, again, Eastwood. This is some of that primer that has the nozzle. So I wanted to open this up and show you what's crazy about it. I say crazy. Maybe it's not crazy. I don't know. If you look at this box, the box says specifically Eastwood, right? Can't get that wrong. This was ordered from Amazon. And I may have mentioned this, that, well, I have a link to it on the my Amazon page. But whenever I was researching this, I looked at pricing from Eastwood and pricing from Amazon. And it worked out actually cheaper to buy it through Amazon. But it's obvious that it's shipped from Eastwood. It's not in an Amazon box. So anyway, there it is. And some sort of instruction, or no, not a receipt. Yeah, some sort of receipt. I don't know that it's, yeah, nothing in particular on that. But anyway, I've been wanting to get this, and so we'll take a quick look at it. I may do a video on this. Why not? There's that little hose, and the question we had, I think the question I had, was whether or not okay, it's got a regular spray nozzle. That was one of the questions. So it's got a regular tip on it. And the kit that they provide, the little, I'm kind of surprised, honestly. I did not expect that to be that small. That's small. And I can also tell you that I can't really see the holes. Ah, there they are. Kind of small. There's 4 little holes. Let's see. If I measure this little nozzle, yeah, it's 3/16 of an inch. So that'll fit into quite a few bolt holes. But it looks like, yeah, it just has a standard, and I can't show you without losing focus, but you just pull that out, pop that in, and then you have supposedly 24 inches of sprayable hose. So maybe I will do a video specific on this setup. I wanted to get this for a couple of reasons. One, to treat the frame rail or the inner rocker on the Brooklyn Pony, obviously, but also I want to spray, I believe, the inside of the trunk lid for this car and for Jade. So I want to put some inside the trunk lid. So that's what's going to happen with this. Now, I don't know how far this will go, as far as coverage. Depends on how much you spray, obviously. And it may be a little tricky to come up with a way to pivot the nozzle inside the rail. I've talked about this, to where they mentioned taking a piece of, and I have a piece right here, a piece of, welding rod, TIG rod, and you tape that to the rod or to the tube, and then you can, manipulate this, bend it, get a curve on it, whatever, and spray. So I think I'll have to do a video on that. Let me see here. Hold on a second. I'm getting text messages, Instagram messages, Facebook messages, all kinds of stuff. All right. So we're going to, it looks like I have Jerry wants to get on tonight. So I'm going to send him an invite. I know in the last conversation we were talking about his connecting his parking brake, and he was having some conflict with that, getting that in place. Let me see where we're at on the comment section. Let's see. Brian W. Understand the football thing. If we're on the same page, Barry. Enough said, I reckon. Yep. Rascal's Garage, checking in from New Jersey. I'm glad you're here. Thomas Yaksich. I've used rollout primer for small areas when I worked at Frederick Dodge dealership. It was made by AutoColor and it worked great. Well, there you go. I'm sure it's very similar to Eastwood. Gordon Cahoon, where did it go? That's high volume purchasing power for you. Yep. Jerry says you pull the tip off. Yep. Yeah, spraying inside the frame works great. Cool. Good. Nick Moss. If you don't use all of that, you need to clean it well because it will harden fast. Best to get the spray pre-prep they sell because the nozzle goes right in it. Best to get the spray pre-prep they sell. Okay. I'll have to look into that. Bob Shoemaker, we had some Seafoam products for cleaning plenums on engines that had long nozzles similar to that, so it would spray the cleaner from back to front through the little throttle body butterflies. Yes. Nick, it works great though. Let me know if you find another way to clean it. Okay. Dave Britton is here. Britton. Let me show you this picture. Now, I talked before about my buddy's 68 Fastback that was campaigned as a drag race car. This is a picture, and I've shown other pictures of this car. This is a picture as he received it right here. So, 68 Fastback. This car, I don't have any pictures, I think, of the front fender specifically, but there are pictures he's found online of this car actually being campaigned and raced. And it was raced in Europe. It had raced here in the States, been through a variety of people. And you can see it says Castrol on it. And if you envision that as it was going, launching, the Castrol is angled right now, but if you raise the front of the car like you were launching, you would make the word Castrol look level. So it's a pretty cool car. And that car has become this car. And it's now painted Wimbledon white. We painted that at the body shop years and years ago. And he's still putting it back together. But that fender off of the Castrol car is the right front fender, is one I will be pulling out of a box. And I mentioned it before. We believe it's an aftermarket fender. But I'm going to try to make it work on the Jade Mustang. So I see Jerry in the background. Let me look at where I'm at on this comment section. William Goodman, good evening from Moore, Oklahoma. Looking forward to seeing how that Eastwood product works. I am too. Jorge, glad you're here. You missed a little bit of an hour's worth of chit chat. Boondocker, let me make an analogy. If you have 4 children, you love them all, but when one of them is hurting, they deserve your extra attention. That is very true. And that is more true than you know right now. And I may have to go into that later on tonight, but that is more true than you know right now. Got some issues dealing with, so we'll maybe get into that later. Brian W. uses some epoxy primer, work great, but the 2K urethane not so good. This stuff is too thick and not sprayable without a reducer. Well, sorry to hear that, but that's a good thing though. You can reduce it. So let me get Jerry on here, and we'll see what's going on with him. So say hey to Jerry.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, I tell you what, if I was any better, I'd be twins.
That's good to hear.
So let me show you kind of what's going on with me and the restoration of the 66 Mustang. So I'll flip the phone around so you can kind of see what's going on.
Okay.
So those that have been on the live stream before have probably seen this. It's painted. It's ready to go. It has a few things that I wish I'd have done different, but the internal is I got the kill mat in.
Hey, Jerry.
Yes.
Do me a favor. Try turning your phone sideways. There we go. Now I'm going to pull off. I'll pull off the screen so people can see the car better, but you won't be able to hear me. So okay. Go ahead.
So anyway, the kill mat's in, which is put in strictly for sound dampening and some insulation, but I'm not thinking much in that. There's insulation on the carpet pad that's going to help a little bit on that. So what I wanted to really talk about was how to put on a trunk seal and how to do that. And so I researched this thing for a long time to figure out, because there's really not good instructions on it. And so this is kind of how you do it. You take the glue, you put it on, you let it set a little bit, and then you tape it off and let it set for a while. The trunk lid will go back on tomorrow, and hopefully it won't leak. And then the other thing that's going on is I got the the back glass in, and that was a challenge. I got to tell you, by just one person putting this thing in, um, I misaligned the glass by about an eighth of an inch from the passenger side to the driver's side, a little more to the driver's side than the passenger, and that probably cost me about an hour's worth of work, because once you set the windshield in place, if you put the caulking in the bottom gasket, then it doesn't slide very much. And after about 4 hours of manipulating the glass and just kind of working around through how everything worked out, then I finally got it in, and it's ready for sealer now. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've researched on YouTube, of how to put the sealer in. And they talk about pulling this seam up here and putting the sealer in here, which is the same for the windshield, by the way. But they also want you to put sealer in back here. Well, when you look at this gasket, pulling this thing back is almost impossible. And I'm not sure, I've got to do a little more research on this, but I'm not sure how I'm going to get sealer into the gasket between the metal and.
Right. Here's the thing, Jerry. From my understanding, you wouldn't put it in after the installation. It has to go in during the installation.
Well, and actually, I seen some YouTube videos on that, and I watched that, and I actually, there's no YouTube videos dedicated to the rear glass.
Okay.
Everything I've seen is dedicated to the front glass. And there's two methods they use. One is you put the sealant in and put the windshield in, and then you clean it up.
Right.
But the only video that I found on YouTube was for a 1970 Mustang. And because I think it was a fastback, and because the fastback in 1970, this comes out and the back glass sets in. And they didn't have a really good explanation of how to do that. So I'm right now I'm kind of just contemplating on how the best way to do this is, because I mean it's pretty much sealed, but I think based on what I've seen from CJ Pony and a couple other manufacturer or distributors that sell this stuff, they recommend just filling this thing in full. I mean, just pumping it in there and letting it go with that. But
well, I don't know how easy that would be to do. Obviously, you recognize that there's not a lot of space. So I don't know how they would say to do that if we're talking about the soft sealant that you would put in. Kind of like a caulking, I guess. But from what I have not done a video on that, have not seen a video specifically, but I know that Recently, another YouTube, Call of George. He's been on here before, I think, and he has a video on my viewers project. He's got a 68 that he just put the glass in, and he comments about that. He doesn't show the process. He put the glass in, and he talks about putting the sealant in the channel for that goes to the pinch weld, and then putting some sealant where the glass goes, and putting the gasket on, and fishing it all together. And he had mentioned, I don't know where he found his information from, but you may go to his channel, Call of George is the name, and see if he can answer that question. Because he did have some information that said this is how you do it, and he even mentioned where they had put caulking on, like I think for the string he used like weed eater string instead of rope.
Yep, and that's what I did down here, all across the bottom up to about right here. I have the rope string caulking in, which is what they recommend. But
I can't see where you're pointing.
And on the windshield, there's hundreds of videos out there that show about the windshield. And I figured out why they don't show the back glass, because this gasket is completely different in how it connects to the back glass because of the trim that goes over it versus the front glass or the windshield. So I'm still doing research. I haven't put anything in there yet. The glass is in there. It looks good.
It does look good,
and I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. How's that headliner look?
Oh, let me show you. I don't know that I can show you a lot of good stuff. Let me get a light.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
So the headliner, I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull. I'm gonna pull off so people.
All right. So the only issue that I wound up with was here. You can see the bubble.
I can see it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I can see it.
The problem with that was if I let me walk around the car and show you the other side.
Okay.
Because it's much better.
Okay.
So if you look at the passenger side,
yeah,
it pulls in really nice.
Yeah.
So if you look where the clips are, right above the
sail panel,
kill mat.
Oh, okay.
And you see where the prongs are on the quarter panel. You plug it into.
Mm-hmm.
This thing turned out really nice.
Yeah, it looks good.
And so if you look at the distance between those, where it's clipped in, and the bottom there. So let me move back around the other side so I'll show you the problem that we run into.
Okay.
That I run into. Sorry.
You're all right.
See the difference?
Yeah.
Between the bottom where the headliner clips in.
Let me pull off a second.
The amount of material that I had to work with when I centered the headliner is about 2.5 inches less than I had to work on the other, which is why I believe that when I got that bubble, that I just could not pull it down.
Now, what you could do, and I'm not, I just, you could experiment a little bit if you wanted to. I know in the past when I've played with some headliners, I was able to take a hair dryer or a heat gun and gently raise the temperature and shrink it a little bit. Now, whether that fixes that or not, I don't know, but obviously you have to be careful.
Well, actually, the vinyl is not going to shrink very much.
Okay.
It'll stretch, and I've tried that. And what I might be able to do now that I've got it kind of locked in place is heat it and re-pull the bottom section and pull that one place out. But other than that, Barry, I am happy with this headliner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gone in really nice.
Yep.
And, you know, experience is the cost of education.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is the second headliner, so I didn't tear it. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. That is good.
So, just to switch gears on just a little bit, this car is an inline six,
Right.
and I'm going to keep it at inline six. And the head that was out of the original car had a crack.
Okay.
Well, I actually found a machinist today that thinks he can weld that crack up and put the original head back on the car and put it back into the vehicle. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the car's looking good. You're moving along.
And so it's, you know, as we've talked before, I mean, if I could go back and do some things differently,
Yeah.
based on where I am now, after having watched, you know, all of your videos on the Brooklyn Mustang,
Yep.
I would do things a little bit different. But I'm starting putting the gaskets on it. It's going to be a daily driver.
Yep.
And I'm pretty happy with that. And for my first restoration, I think it's going to be okay.
I believe so. I believe so. People will still turn their head to look at it. I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, and I think you're right.
Whoops, there you are. Yeah. Yeah, they'll still turn their head.
And, you know, the interesting thing is with this head rebuild I'm doing right now, they're going to take 60 thousandths off the head, assuming they can weld the crack.
Right.
And if they can weld the crack and pressurize it and it doesn't leak, then they're going to take 60 thousandths off. And then I'm going to let this guy do the same thing. I'm going to just zero mill the block. And we're going to put in new pistons. And we'll probably have to use the existing rods and the caps and stuff like that. But based on Clifford's performance out in California, emails that I've traded with them, is they're going to be able to produce with a mild cam. They think the 120 horsepower that was originally designed into these inline sixes,
right,
270, is going to produce about 220 to 240 horsepower.
Wow.
The car is going to be about 2,500 pounds, 2,600 pounds of weight, and it's got an inline six in it. And I got to tell you, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to lose money if they challenge me on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a fun car to drive at that point.
Yeah. I mean, at 240 horsepower, if we can get that, and if we back off to 220 horsepower, we're going to generate about 280 foot-pounds of torque. And so if you're talking about red light to red light, yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it sounds good. Maybe I'll have to come up and go for a ride.
I occasionally get down to your area, at least to Atlanta, going over to Macon. And if I get a trip coming up, I'll give you a heads up.
Okay.
Because I'd like to bring this car and show it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to drive it down here, I'm south of Atlanta. So
yeah.
I'm on the south side.
Yeah. So
I'd be happy to see it.
But anyway, I just want to just give you guys an update and let you know how, when you make decisions, and this is one of the things that you've talked about on almost every video that I've watched on you, is test and fit and body lines. And I got to tell you, before I got into this business, some of that stuff didn't make a lot of sense to me. But when I start looking at show cars, and I told you, I've got the 2009 Shelby Cobra GT500,
right?
That is kind of my money car, and it kind of wins money everywhere I take it. Unfortunately, I just hadn't been able to take it a lot of places here lately.
Right.
And the money it wins doesn't really pay anything for much more than the gas.
Right.
But the long and short of it is, I really want a car that just looks cool. And if you want to challenge me in a street light, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's I took the head today. I finally found a guy that can do head repair, and the original head that was on the car had a crack in it, in the exhaust between 2 and 3, and he thinks he can fix it. So he's going to fix it, or he's going to weld it up and then test it. If it tests out, then we're going to put in new valves and do a valve job on it and stuff like that. And then I'm going to order the parts to bump the engine up to roller rockers and double, double
double roller timing chain.
Yep. And if it dynos out at 200 horsepower,
yeah,
I'm happy. If it does 220 or 240, then I'm ecstatic.
Sure, I would be too.
The car's going to weigh about 2,500 pounds.
Right. And I've earlier today, I mentioned that maybe earlier in the video, I started up the Jade Mustang, which I haven't started in probably 6 months. And I had a couple of reasons for doing that. But I put it on the next video that I'm making, and I also put it on Instagram to show show it running. But it was kind of it was nice because that engine is not stock. When I had it built, I asked my buddy, just build me a stock engine. I don't want anything crazy. Just give me a stock engine. Well, you can listen to this thing, and it's sitting there and it's idling, and the car is doing that. The car is just shaking with the revs or the idle. I don't know what kind of horsepower it has. It doesn't matter, but that car is going to go. I know it's going to go.
Well, he probably puts you in a mile cam, probably 110 degree lobe separation on the cam, and that's pretty mild, but it will cause the car to lope a little bit,
right?
Sitting there and idling, which from a car guy,
yeah,
or from a street
But
racer.
let me back up a second. He builds drag race engines.
Yeah.
So whenever he started telling me about what he had done, I knew it was above and beyond what I had asked for, which is okay. But I really wanted it stock. I actually have the engine. I have a Jade startup video on it. When I broke in, I think I broke in the cam and broke in the engine. But I have somewhere in there, I have an exhaust, like a muffler video that I did. And I think I listed the cam spec in there. Somewhere in there is a cam spec. But whatever else he did, I don't know. But I mean, it sounds pretty healthy. I'll say that.
Well, Brian, it's really not what it does driving down the road.
Right.
It's how it idles and catches everybody's attention. We just had a cruise in here in Tennessee, where I live,
Yep.
Columbia, Tennessee, which is south of Nashville. We had 300 cars, and it was the biggest turnout of pedestrians. And I'd have to say that we had a pedestrian turnout of over 1,000 people.
Nice. That's great.
And it's just, I am just amazed about the number of people that want to see modified cars, antique cars, fast cars, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely an interest in everybody to see these cars. And you know what? I just went to a cruise in on Saturday night, local cruise in, and there was probably, I don't know, 70, 80 cars, which is pretty good. It's like a little pizza shop that puts on this cruise in. But they had some really obscure cars there that I think there was I don't even know what it was. I can't remember if it was a 62 or 3. My mind says Catalina, but I don't think it was a Catalina. It had 3 deuces on it, factory 4-speed. I mean, it was a built hot rod that they had put out. But the really unique stuff was, I guess, the local Corvair club showed up. So there was a 63 Corvair, there was a 66 Corvair, there was a Corvair, 2 Corvair pickups, and a Corvair van. Okay, and I have pictures of it on the Facebook page. But the one Corvair pickup, this guy has a 350 small block in the back behind the cab. It is a hot rod, but it has the drop sides on it. That you can put cargo in from the side. It was so nice to see stuff like that, which you normally don't see. And there were people, a variety of people. Now they had a bunch of cars that were like new Corvettes. Everybody just walked past them. There was nobody looking at the new Corvettes. Because why? You could see them at the dealership. You walk over, you see the stuff you don't find, But it was a good show. It was a good cruise in.
We had a guy who showed up, first time he's been there that I know of in the last year. He had and it's hard for me to know the year models of the Volkswagen Beetles.
Right.
But I'm guessing probably a 61 or 63 version. He had a LS engine in front. And
wow.
Out the bat, and he had a blower on it. He had modified the hood. I mean, it's a fiberglass hood, so I'm guess there's people that make that.
Yeah.
But, back where the engine would be in the Volkswagen Beetle was his cooling system.
Yep.
And I mean, this was an awesome car. I mean, I spent hours looking at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like engineering at its max.
Yeah.
Put an engine like that into a vehicle of that size.
Right. Now, obviously, it would have had to have a full frame. It would have had to have had, it couldn't have used any of the Volkswagen chassis. it would not have supported any of that.
And actually, I didn't even think about looking at the chassis.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, because the driveline would not work. There's no way it would hold up to that. It would have had to have like a Ford 9-inch. It would have had to have full frame. You know, it was basically a body sitting on a race car.
Yeah. Well, you're right about that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about that. I mean, I wish I'd laid down and looked underneath because
You would have been probably even more impressed.
yeah.
Yep.
Because it was awesome.
Yeah. Yep. I got a couple comments here. Hold on a second. Sammy Lisa Smith says, "Sweet car." Talking about your car.
Thank you.
Rick Stevenson says, "Good looking car."
Thank you.
Gary, so that's good. Now, Cooter Lev, he says the design of the integrated intake on the head of the early 200 six-cylinder engines limits the performance.
It does.
So I don't know what the situation is with where you're at.
Well, actually, one of the options that I'm thinking about is cutting off the intake log block and building a manifold that will let me support a different carburation system. And the most common thing they do on these engines are they put on 6 one-barrel motorcycle carburetors.
Okay.
And what I've researched is that, yeah, that's a nightmare of tuning and leakage and stuff like that. But I'm actually thinking about if this doesn't work out for me on what I'm doing right now, because the plan is if the guy can weld the head up, because that's the original cast head, that the casting numbers line up with the engine, which I'm not sure why I'm worried about that, because nothing else lines up with being Concours.
Right.
But I am kind of thinking about that, is that I might cut the log off and build a manifold that would let me put on a 4-barrel or 2-barrel carburetor.
Right.
The plan right now is not to cut the log off, but to put on a 2-barrel Weber 3838 carburetor, aspirated carburetor. And Holley makes what they call a Holley Sniper 2-barrel carburetor, which is fuel injected.
Right.
And so I'm looking at costs right now, trying to evaluate, what I really want is an aspirated engine or a fuel injected engine. My gut says stay with aspirated because that's the way the car was built. But I can put the fuel injection on for the same price.
I'd go with fuel injection.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
That's kind of where I'm leaning. But all my gearhead guys that I hang around with, they're saying no, go aspirated, go aspirated, go aspirated. Well, I my gut tells me is to go fuel injected.
Yeah, I would. If
So
it's the same cost.
So I guess since my money,
Yeah. You can do what you want.
Yeah, do what I want.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got some people checking out. So Derek Pro had to leave, so he's gone. Sammy Lisa Smith says, "Go all the way with a turbo."
Well, actually, I actually looked at a turbo design on this engine.
Yeah.
And I kind of nixed that because of the spin up, and because of the fact that I dealt with a company out in California called Clifford Performance by email, and they recommended doing a 60 thousandths mil on the head,
right,
and 0 mil the block, and then going with a 210 or a 212 lobe separation kind of medium cam, and a Weber 2-bell carburetor, they're calculating the horsepower is going to be about 220, 240.
Right. Right. Well, you'll find out.
Well, eventually I will.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, with a 2,500-pound body weight,
right,
and 220 or 240 horsepower or whatever it produces, it'll be a sleeper on the street.
Yeah. Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And nobody's going to challenge a 6-cylinder.
Yeah.
Because, this is one of the things that a lot of the gearheads don't put together. They all think about horsepower, and horsepower is incredibly important. But more than important in torque power or horsepower is the torque.
Right.
If I can develop 300 pounds of torque out of a 200 horsepower engine up till the torque peaks,
right,
and then the horsepower takes over, which is probably about, on my engine, about 4,500 horsepower, then I've got them through a quarter mile.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to beat me in the quarter mile, because, they can take the biggest V8 they got, and unless the thing has been really pumped up, it's
right.
This inline 6 is going to hold its own.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to
it. I'm kind of a simple guy. I like the simple stuff, and the inline 6 is simple. It develops a lot of torque, and I like the engine.
Yep. Well, let me know how it turns out. I think
I will. I will.
All right. I'm going to let you go for tonight.
Sounds good.
Time's running out, but I'm glad you gave us some updates and we got to see what you were working on. So,
all right. Sounds good.
We'll see you.
See ya.
All right. So let me get back up here on some comments. Amarant Detailing, or Amarante. Is it me or the i6 engines are getting more desirable these days? I had a 72 fastback i6 and it was a dream to drive around. What's interesting, I don't know that they're becoming more desirable or more prevalent, because it seems like the V8 cars are being all bought up. I mean, you see them for sale, but if I go to like Facebook Marketplace, there is 6-cylinder car after 6-cylinder car after 6-cylinder car that are showing up on Marketplace, and they're wanting some serious money for them. But some of them are going cheap, but for the most part, they seem to be more available at this point. And maybe it's, again, because the V8 cars have dried up in a sense. Let's see. Jeff Reynolds asked if his YouTube license expired. I hope not. It looks like Dave Conville said something blacked out for a minute. So I don't know what was going on, or if it was just Dave. But I'm assuming there was some sort of problem with the feed. I don't know. Like I said, Derek Pro checked out. Dave and Cheryl say great looking car. Cooter Lev, full blown drag motor in a Nash Metropolitan is something to see as well. Yeah, I saw one. There was a Nash for sale a couple of weeks ago on Facebook Marketplace for it was cheap, like $2,500, and the thing was straight. It was all there. Looked like he just rolled it out of a garage, and he listed it for like $2,500. I don't know what they're really worth, but I thought that was pretty reasonable. Bob Shoemaker, that ramp side Corvair was sweet, and the same day you posted those pictures, someone else posted one for sale on Facebook. Yep, it's a cool truck. Like I said, there was two of them there. One was a standard truck, and one had a V8 conversion. Dave Britton, he's saying the V8 Nash Metropolitans are the best. Yeah, they're pretty cool little cars. Greg Workshop, good morning, Barry. Good morning to you, Greg. Brian W., a bit of porting and polishing goes a long way too, Jerry. That is very true. So. Jerry, here is a YouTube on the back window. It shows a sealer talking about search 1970 rear window installation. Maybe that's one he was referring to. So, Jerry, if you're listening, he's pointing out 1970 rear window installation. I think that may be one he was referring to as well. And it's a bit different for the 65 and 6 because of the shape of the roof. Bob Shoemaker, don't know if anyone has knocked the core plug out of the end of that intake side so they could open up the flow volume there. The 250 head had bigger valves and carb opening. Okay, so don't know if anyone has knocked the core plug out of the end of that intake. Okay. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if Jerry has approached that or not. Cooter Ford 200s intakes are a car version of the Tootsie Pop. Lean on the outside, rich in the middle. Okay. Goodmunder, fuel injection makes more sense on a daily driven vehicle. No vapor lock, easier cold starts, and better fuel economy if that is desirable. I agree. Jerry Rascal says go fuel injection and NOS. Boondocker, going to go, Barry. I got to say, I'm really interested in your mentioning you're going through something without knowing what it's about. I'd love to offer prayer. Well, thank you, Boondocker. It's a tragedy that it's kind of hard to talk about, but I may close out with some discussion on that because it's a difficult subject to broach, let's say. But thank you for that, Boondocker. I appreciate that. Greg's asking if it is a 200 engine. I believe so. Greg. Okay, so Dave it may have been his provider. Let's see. Kuderlev, still love my inline 6, 36 years together this October 5th. Wow, that's pretty good. 68 Stang, just say the video of the just saw the video of the 302 idling on Instagram. Sounds great. Well, thank you, Reese. Appreciate that. Dave, by the way, that Malibu manual coupe you posted, awesome. Yes, it is. And I'm telling you what, I posted briefly, I think in the on Facebook when I posted that car. Let me just give you everybody some background on this. In 1978, they transitioned the Malibu. It used to be a Chevelle Malibu they didn't make the Chevelle anymore. They converted it to Malibu. So in 78, they transitioned from the 77 body, which was kind of swoopy, to a box. I mean, the 78 was just a box. 78, 9, 80, 81, 82, I'm thinking somewhere in 82, 83, something like that. It may have gone to 84. I don't remember exactly. But the Malibu became, the Nova of the time period, let's say. But they also made the El Camino, station wagons, and different things like that. I've had 4 of those, and I just love them because it's a full frame car. People drag race them all the time, and I started researching them over the years, and I come to the conclusion from my research that in 1978, that was the last year that you could get it was the last year and the first year for that body that you could get a 350 engine in it. So if you find a 78 with a 350 engine, it becomes kind of a rare car. If you find a 78 with a 350 and a 4-speed, you have found a true unicorn. That is such a rare thing to find that I've never seen one until this past Saturday. I was at the local cruise-in. All the cars were leaving, and in pulls a black 81 Malibu. 8-inch rally wheels on it, slick, beautiful car. And I wasn't even too interested in it because I was getting ready to leave. And I saw it sitting there. I thought, I'll go over and take a look. So I went over to take a look at it. Like, man, this car is really clean. It's really nice. Start walking around, and I stick my head and look in the interior, and there's a 4-speed. And I thought, what? No way. Because I had just had a conversation with a young friend of mine that night telling him how rare it was to find a Malibu with a 4-speed. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like dumbfounded because I'd never seen one before. And I was thinking, is that what I think it is? Or am I seeing things? Or is it somebody has converted it? So I'm looking around the car. I'm taking pictures. I'm really getting into it. This older gentleman come walking over to me. And I say older. He was probably early 70s. He came walking over to me, and he's like, how much you give me for it? And I said, "Is it for sale?" And he said, "No." Well, um, he goes on to tell me it's an 81 model. It was a factory 4-speed car, but in 81 they made them factory 4 speeds with a V6 engine. So it had a 3.8 liter originally with a 4-speed. And he said, you can look it up. There's a Chevy catalog, some sort of online catalog where you can research those numbers. In that year, they only made 250 of them that were 4-speed V6 cars. Now, I don't know if they made any that were V8 cars, but in 81, you could get a 4-speed with a V6. He said he owns 2 of them. He's got a black one and he's got a white one. And this car, I showed pictures on it on the Facebook page. Black bucket seats. It was beautiful. And he had converted it. He pulled out the air conditioning. He stuck in a small block 350 and just drives the thing. And it is, I mean, I was just so amazed that I finally found one. It was like one of those things on my checklist. You know, at least I could see one, if not actually own one. But yeah, and I want, hopefully he goes up, he said he's going to come to the next cruise in with the white one. So I need to check that one out as well. But you get a bell for that, Dave, for bringing that up. Thank you. All right. Late to the party tonight, Welder 4956. Sounds like I missed a good discussion on the inline six. Yep, had a pretty good discussion going. Give me a minute, old crony. We'll talk in just a second. Thanks for your time, guys. It's nice, good friends. This was a nice one. Good night, friends. Strawberry is awesome. Strawberry is awesome. There's an L in there. That's what threw me. It's awesome. Okay. Harvey, been in out tonight for some reason. My nights are always busy. Fire department nights. 2 calls tonight since 7. You need to move to another night. Okay. Thomas Yaksich. Prayers and wishes, T-Berry. Thank you. Greg, hi. They were good. They were very good. Yeah. Let's see. BK Woods, the AMC 256, one of the best engines Jeep ever used. Okay. I'd agree with that. Dave Britton, I just looked up that Malibu and they're only 94 built. Is that the 78 version? The 78 Malibu? Okay. Oh, you're referring to the 79. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why if I could ever find one of those, I would buy it. If it was, restorable, whatever, I would buy it. I just love the looks of that car. Yeah, because I think he just didn't want it. Didn't want the complications with it. So, all right. So Cheryl's checking out. Got to go get some rest before I go. All right. Okay. So there's 1 minute left, and there's something I wanted to talk about because, and this is going to be really hard for me to talk about. I'll be 100% honest. Really hard. I moved here in 91 and started working for the airlines. And 92, we had our first son. 94, we had another son. 98, we had our daughter. And early 90s, I started getting into dirt track racing. Well, a friend from work had joined me in the dirt track racing stuff. He decided he wanted to help out. So he became kind of my crew chief, and we raced together, and eventually he actually moved in right next door. So sometime in the mid 90s, he moved in right next door to my house. And we worked together on cars over the years. We've done different things together. We raced together. Well, he had 2 boys. So I think his oldest son was 1 year older than our oldest son, and his other son was close enough. I mean, they were like right next to each other in age. So our boys and his boys grew up together. Now, there were times where, due to family complications, his boys they've been divorced, and his boys lived with the mom sometimes, and they lived with him. And anyway, so his sons were over here all the time. My wife would babysit and watch his sons, and there were, I mean, we interacted all the time. And his oldest son would come over here and help me with car stuff. Now he had problems. He did have some issues with, well, he had some run-ins with the law. He had some problems, but he was really trying to get his life on track, let's say. Now, he worked for me a brief period of time at our body shop. That didn't work out. But he like I said, he had some problems, but he was trying to get his life on track. Well, this past Friday, anyway, this past Friday he was killed. Sorry. This past Friday, he died in a drug-related accident. So he was crushed by a truck. So the point is, no parent should have to bury their kid ever. So anyway, that was part of the reason I fired up the Mustang today, because he would have loved that. All right. Thank you all for being here. Gotta go. Appreciate all of you. I'll be back on Thursday. Take care.